All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Super excited here to have with me Jeff Chisum, who is no stranger to our community, the Savvy Duck world, because he has gracefully been featured on both SCR Con 2021 and 2022, and now we have the amazing joy of having him give us an amazing update of what's happening in the lending industry. So if you are new here, first of all, you know what? I think I should probably just allow him to say hello first before I tell you all about him. So hi, Jeff.
Hey, good to see you. Good to be here. Yeah, excited to be on.
Super excited. So if you have not met Jeff yet, Jeff is one of the top lending professionals in the industry, not just industry, but at least in the short-term rental world. I'll let him give you his full stats, but basically, let's just put it in a nutshell that when I got started with short-term rentals, it was listening to his talk that made me go, huh, this is actually pretty doable. Okay, so so if you are new to short-term rentals, you want to pay attention because yeah. So welcome, Jeff. Welcome again.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, so I've been originating since 2008. So I'm a survivor of the big crash. So been originating loans for a minute. I have been a top 1% loan originator in the United States out of all loan officers for at least the past 4 years. So very proud of that achievement. In anything to be top 1% is pretty awesome. So I tell people all the time, I don't say that to brag. It's just, you want people to know that you're serious about what you do and how you do it. And, we didn't get to that level because, we skate the line on gray areas and, we do things the right way. So, any information that I have out there, anything that I share has all been vetted because, the big opportunity that I've seen is to break through bad information or old information that's been communicated by other loan officers. So I've even seen interviews done with very well-known loan officers in the space that have communicated incorrect information. So, there's always an opportunity to, break through that. And, 100% of my business today is financing for short-term rentals / vacation homes. And 90% of my clients are using the 10% down second home occupancy loan. So I don't know how much of that you want to cover, some of the basics, but it really is some of the basics that have stopped people from moving forward with using this type of financing to buy in this asset class. So, sometimes it's just the elementary things that we need to know to, be able to move forward with things that bring us to, significant levels. So, a lot of what I do is not complicated or rocket science or anything like that. It's really just getting the word out with this basic understanding that we have. Now, I will say, there has been policy changes made in the past, 4 or 5 years. Some loan officers missed out on that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found is it's just a misinterpretation of the policy.
Mm-hmm.
So, very rough numbers, but I like to say that there's only about 5% of loan officers that have the correct policy, and there's only about 2% of us that have a correct interpretation. And yes, that has been vetted out with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So, we definitely can stand by the information that we share and the information that we've put out there in this space.
Amazing. So let's even take a step back because and we will go into all the basics because some people are watching this and are totally new to short-term rentals. Matter of fact, I had somebody reach out to me today who is just starting to consider short-term rentals. So there'll definitely be people who need that very basic part. But let's even just talk about your experience with personal short-term rentals. Let's start from there so that people understand that we're not just, talking about theory, but that you're actually living this, I guess, STR life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I came, we all, whatever profession we're in, we get these industry type emails that come across every day, all day long. And I would say it's probably been 5, 6, maybe even 7 years ago where this email came out about the second home occupancy loan. I read it and thought it was very significant. I thought it was a very significant change. But back then, I was really doing all of my business was local. All of it was for people that were buying primary residences. So I didn't really, have any clients that would be interested in that information around that second home occupancy loan. So I just kind of stuck it in my back pocket. And, we as a family were looking at different avenues to invest in. Um, I didn't like the stock market. I didn't trust what was going on. There were things, the stories around Enron and just different games that were being played that I never wanted our family's money to be involved in, which, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be diversified in your portfolio. And in fact, I still have money in 401ks and, plan on putting more money in the stock market. But we came to a point where we had more than, the ends meeting at the end of the month. We had surplus, we had excess, and we wanted to invest that in a way that was responsible, that it was honoring in our faith. And so, we explored different avenues and ended up landing on short-term rentals. So, we had stayed in them. We had really had become, as a family, our preferred means of accommodations because we had younger kids. We couldn't separate into different motel rooms and hotel rooms. And so one Christmas, my son was living in Arkansas. He was a fireman out in Searcy, Arkansas, and we were looking for a place to stay during Christmas. Ended up on a lake out there, Ozarks Lake, just absolutely beautiful. And the house was amazing. It was this cabin right on the lake. And again, we were saying to ourselves, wouldn't it be nice to own a place like this? And, like a lot of things in your life where it constantly comes up and is in front of you, and you finally tell yourself, you know what? We're going to stop talking about this. We're going to start really getting serious about purchasing one of these. And so that is when I pulled this information out of my back pocket about the second home occupancy loan. And so before I became an expert in the space, before I became kind of the go-to person for STR financing, I used it myself. And so we ended up buying a property, and then 6 months later ended up buying our second one. And so, we're going on year 4 of owning our short-term rental that we started with. So we haven't sold, still have those same 2 properties, still plan on buying additional properties. So yeah, I'm not someone who is just going to talk about things in theory and tell you it's a great thing that you should do and not have done it myself. So it's been great for our family. One of the things that I love about short-term rentals is, the personal use aspect of it. So we're buying cool properties in cool places that we're going to use them ourselves. And I get the question all the time, Jeff, where are people buying? Where's the best place to buy? And I can't answer that question because everyone has different criteria.
Yeah.
But what I can tell people is, hey, where do you like to go?
Mm-hmm.
Because I bet there's families just like you looking for the same thing, because you're probably, very unique and special, but you're no different than anybody else. Your family likes to go to the lake just like a lot of other people's families. So start there maybe. Because that's what we did is, we love this lake, this area in north central Arkansas. It was beautiful. It was a change of scenery from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And when you're looking to get away, that's what you want. You want to change the scenery. And so that met that for us. So there's that personal use aspect of it. There's the tax savings. There's the cash flow. But ultimately, when we think about legacy and what that will benefit our family when it comes to thinking about the legacy that we'll leave, it leaves that legacy of action takers. Our kids, and I've got them all the way from 24 to 20 to 14 to 10. They got to see what it looked like for mom and dad to take action, not just talking about doing something. And to me, we'll have a portfolio of properties that we'll leave. Whatever they end up doing with them, I don't know what that's going to look like ultimately. But they got to see, what it looks like to take action in your life, not just talking about doing things. And I've had that on my mind for a long, long time. I did not want to be someone who, at the end of their days, you get that picture of your family standing around the bed and them looking at each other saying, you know what, Dad really talked about doing. He had a lot of great ideas, but he never did anything. I don't want to be that kind of person, and a lot of different levels in my life, but this is definitely an area where I can say I wasn't someone who just had great ideas. My kids got to see me take action.
That's so good. That is so good. That is so good. I'm really glad that we went down that route. Because there are a lot of things that, even I could even find a list of things that I'm like, that seems really interesting. That seems really interesting. But taking that leap is usually where a lot of people get, hung up or stuck, which is why we're doing this, right? So that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the big opportunities that I've been able to facilitate. Is, they've talked to the loan officer and, they've said, hey, I want to buy an investment property. And then the loan officer told them, well, you'll need 20% down. So that is where I've seen the big opportunity to educate people is, no, you don't need 20%. You only need 10%. And all of a sudden that makes it a lot more feasible, a lot more palatable for a bigger population of people. So, when I'm talking about what we do for people when, whether it's going through the pre-approval process or educating people, is we're creating action takers.
Yes.
And ultimately, that's my goal for a lot of people is to put them in a position where they feel confident, educated, and empowered to take action.
Okay. Now let's get into the different loan types. So let's first of all just start with just mentioning what they are, and then we'll go into maybe each one of them individually to kind of talk about their pros, their cons, etc. So if somebody comes to you and says, "Okay, Jeff, I think I want to buy a short-term rental. What are my options?" What do you tell them?
Yeah. So really the way I explain it is, 100% of my business now on the other side of buying my own property, almost 4 years ago is helping people with the financing to buy vacation homes, destination properties / short-term rentals. And 90% of my clients are using the 10% down second home occupancy loan. So the vast majority of the clients that I'm talking to are taking advantage of that product, which, the majority of those people are, W-2 wage earners. They have that documentable income and they have the ability to absorb that payment into their debt to income ratios. So that's number one. And then, probably 9% of the rest of the pool of my clients are using the DSCR loan, the debt service coverage ratio loan. So that's the easiest loan that we do in this space. And it's easy because we're not using personal income to qualify someone for the loan. It's all based on the property's ability to show cash flow that's going to match the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payment. And the reason that's the easiest loan outside of, you're not having to provide a bunch of documentation, or you're not having to qualify for the loan with your personal income is because we're using short-term rental income to support that ratio, even though the product was originally designed for long-term rentals. So that one-to-one ratio is based on long-term rental income, but we use short-term rental income, and with that income, we're typically blowing that one-to-one ratio out of the water.
Yeah.
And then, here and there, we're using a portfolio product. And sometimes it's the DSCR loan for non-warrantable condos because, typically in these destination areas, when people are interested in the condo route, I have to explain that it's typically not going to meet the standards that Fannie and Freddie are looking for when it comes to the financing that they will allow to be done on these condos. And when I say non-warrantable condo, really the differentiator there between a warrantable condo and a non-warrantable condo is occupancy of the entire development. So what Fannie and Freddie are looking for is condo developments where the majority of the units are occupied as a primary residence. Well, when we get into these destination areas like, typically, coastal beach type areas, those are occupied as second homes. So Fannie and Freddie are not typically going to do deals in those developments in those areas. So we have to look at a different product there. So again, to answer your question, the 10% down second home occupancy loan, DSCR loans, and the non-warrantable condos.
Okay, great. So now I'm actually glad that you brought up the non-warrantable condos because that one doesn't come up in a lot of conversations. So maybe we'll touch a little bit on that eventually. But starting with the 10% down on second home occupancy loan, can you talk a little bit about what that loan is about? Just basically describe it to people who have never heard of it before. Because that, like you mentioned, is what a lot of people end up using for their first one. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so where I see people get derailed when it comes to financing is they talk to, their guy, someone that they've used before for financing, and they tell them, excuse me, I want to buy an investment property. And the way I put that is every piece of real estate that we buy is an investment. It's just a matter of usage. So, simple question would be, hey, you guys live in Chicago, you're looking to buy this place in Florida. That's a destination area. Do y'all plan on using it from time to time? Well, absolutely. We love going to Florida. We love to vacation there. We just want to buy a property that we can call our own, and then we're going to rent it out on a short-term basis. So that's why I called it an investment property, but yeah, we plan on using it. If that one simple question would be asked, do you plan on using it? It would go in a whole different direction than getting in an investment property loan, which typically is why you get that minimum 20% down payment answer. But simply put, if you plan on using that property at some point during that first year, that puts you in the lane of the second home occupancy loan, which the benefit there is the 10% down payment, but then the interest rate is typically going to be much lower than what you would get on an investment property loan. And that's where I really have to kind of stop, because people are going to say, well, I talked to my loan officer about the second home occupancy loan, and they told me that the fees and the rates went up with Fannie Mae last year to where now they're on the same level as an investment property loan. I have a unicorn. So I'm with the FDIC insured bank, North Point Bank. We're aligned with a branch of the Federal Home Loan Bank that has a second home occupancy loan that has lower interest rates and lower fees than what you would find with Fannie and Freddie. So the Federal Home Loan Bank is a federally backed entity, just like Fannie and Freddie. Very, very lesser known than Fannie and Freddie, of course. but there's only a few banks that have access to their products. So you're absolutely right. If you have that knowledge about that second home occupancy loan fees going up and the rates going up, but there are some opportunities like we have where those fees weren't imposed on that product last year like they were with Fannie and Freddie. So we can get rates that are very close to what you would get on a primary residence, still only have to put that 10% down. So definitely worth mentioning. Definitely worth mentioning. So your intention has to be that you occupy that property at least at some point during that first year. And the bottom line there is you just can't put yourself in a position where you couldn't occupy that property when you wanted to. So that means you can't get into a long-term lease or any type of legally binding agreement where you couldn't occupy the property when you wanted to. So that's no timeshare agreements or anything like that. Now you're released from those occupancy requirements after 1 year. So that's when you could transition to a long-term lease and there wouldn't be a problem. That's when you can put that property into the name of an LLC from your individual name and not have to worry about the due on sale clause being executed and the note being called. So that 1 year is a big deal. You're released from that occupancy requirements. So if you hear anything where you have to stay in the property for 2 weeks, you have to stay in it for any specific amount of time, that's just not true. There is no specific days you have to stay in the property. Like I said, you just can't put yourself in a position where you lose control over the ability to occupy that property when you want to. So things around that are, yes, you can put it on Airbnb. You can put it on Vrbo. You can put it on HomeAway. Any of those marketing sites, that is not an issue. You can have a property manager. That's another one that I hear is that you can't have a property manager. And that's just not the case. You just can't have any language in your agreement that says you have to make the property available X amount of days per year, or you're going to be in violation of the agreement. So that, again, would be a situation where you lose control over the occupancy of the property. So you just, that's just something that you would want to look for as far as language in the property management agreement. So distance requirement, that's another one that I hear. It has to be, yeah, it has to be at least 50 miles away. There's no mileage distance requirement. We want to stay with a 1-unit property, so it can't be multifamily. It can't be a duplex or a tri or a quad. So 1-unit, single family or townhome is the safe lane to stay in when it comes to the type of property. And then, we talked about it before that it can't be a non-warrantable condo. So that's where, if we want to stay in a kind of slam dunk, don't have to worry about, is it going to be this or that to qualify? I typically tell people stay away from condos unless you're looking in now this is a great audience to talk about this because we talk to docs, we talk to healthcare professionals. They may be in a situation where they live in the suburbs and they want to buy a condo near the hospital.
Yeah.
So that is a great scenario where, you're looking at a metropolis area where condos may be occupied primarily as a primary residence. That may be a great opportunity. So I take that back a little bit because I have to consider my audience.
Yep.
You may have some people that are listening, some doctors, physicians, healthcare providers that, they need a place to stay when the weather gets bad.
Yeah.
They can't be stuck out in the suburbs when the snow hits or, there's impending bad weather. So there may be a great opportunity to buy that condo with the 10% down if you're living in, Denver or Dallas or, fill in the blank big city.
Why do I feel like someone in our community actually did that last year? I feel like one of the people,
Oh,
I'm not,
absolutely.
not sure if I'll interview her or not, but I think I have one person in mind actually that I think did that last year. Um,
No, it's a great opportunity, and I bet we absolutely did. I even had, and it's just coincidental that they were a physician, but I had she was a swim mom. She's a physician swim mom, but her kids swam competitively, and coincidentally, it just happened to be here in Dallas. But she was looking to buy a place near, and this is actually more towards the distance requirement than it is the condo, because
okay.
she ended up buying a single family home, but she wanted to buy something near where her kids
Just swing
did
meets.
their swim meets and also their practices. So she couldn't be in a situation where, luckily I knew what the traffic scenario could turn into. Even though she lived 20 miles away, that drive could end up turning into 2 hours if she got into a wreck, and she couldn't be in a situation where her kids were late for the swim meet.
Mm,
They would be disqualified. It would disqualify them from the event or maybe even the meet.
mm,
So that scenario made sense to an underwriter as to why they were buying this property that was only 20 miles from their home. So yeah, we definitely could throw that condo into the mix here because we're talking to healthcare providers.
yeah. And you kind of hinted at this, but I wanted to kind of actually say it out loud because some people miss this point, which is that you can have more than one second home.
Yeah, no, that's great. And a question I get a lot of times, and we're typically not talking to a client about doing a deal. We're usually building a relationship because they want to build a portfolio of these products. So, the question I get is, Jeff, how do I scale? And that's hard to answer because everybody's ability to qualify is going to be different.
Yeah.
But to kind of give a general answer to that is we're going to exhaust that 10% down second home occupancy lane, as far as we can take it. And so initially, there's a few ways that you could be disqualified from that lane. One is you have more than 10 mortgages in your name. So
Yeah.
you can have up to 10 mortgages in your name, and there's nothing to say that all 10 of those were not originated as 10% down second home occupancy loans. The second one would be that you've exhausted your debt to income ratio. So you, on the 10% down second home occupancy loan, you have to show the ability to absorb the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payment into your ratios without considering that this property is going to be generating income. So that is going to vary. Based, everyone's going to be different. Their ability to qualify for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is going to be different. The thing that I would add to that is that you can use the income from the short-term rental after you've shown it on your tax return for potentially a year. So there's two lanes on that. And I've got a podcast out there on my STR home financing where we talk about things that you need to think about when you're thinking about refinancing, and I cover some of that in that podcast. But some of the basics are you can claim that income on Schedule E. You can also claim it on Schedule C if you're running it through your LLC. But for the purposes of qualifying, if you run it through Schedule E, we can use that income after you've claimed it for a year. If
Mm,
you claim it on, or if you're running it through Schedule E, you have to show, just like any business, you have to show a 2-year history of that income to use it towards qualifying.
that's for C.
So
So for C, it's 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
See,
E, it's 1 year.
it's 1 year.
So, that's the other thing that we consider is, okay, I've come up against the debt to income ratio ceiling. When can I do another one? So that's kind of the short answer.
Yeah.
Because the other lane would be the DSCR lane, where we're not going to be looking at personal income to qualify. So there's no debt to income ratio standard. It's all based on the property's ability to show potential cash flow that would match the principal interest, taxes, and insurance payment. So, the not so attractive piece to the debt thing or the DSCR loan is that as an experienced investor, you have to have at least 20% down payment for that. So that's going to be an experienced investor is going to be someone who has owned a cash flow producing property for a year in the past year. If you're not an experienced investor, you can still do the deal. You just have to be prepared to put down 25%. And then the interest rate is typically going to be about 2% higher than what you would find on the 10% down lane. So that's going to be, the two main options that we're going to use, but it just depends on how quick you want to scale and what your resources are and what your ability is when it comes to what product you're going to use. But I think if we go back to your original question, yeah, absolutely. You can do more than two, or you can do more than 10% down second home occupancy loan, because I get that question all the time. Hey, Jeff, I used that last year. What's my option now?
Yeah, that's definitely one that I know comes up quite a bit, because people are like, well, I already have a second home, so now I want to get another property. So how do I pay for it? And I'm like, go get another second home.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Go get a fourth.
Well, people, we don't commonly, put ourselves in the position of being ultra wealthy, a rock star, a professional athlete, where they are traveling all over the world and going to their house in Italy. But we don't have to be ultra wealthy to buy, more than one vacation home.
Yeah.
And this is the avenue where we can do that, is using that 10% down second home occupancy loan multiple times.
Well, that's really good. I mean, when I tell you, for years, I didn't even look at short-term rentals. It just seemed like, yeah, that's for other people, and then I gave myself all the excuses. And then I heard about the 10% down. I was like, wait, what? I was like, what do you mean 10% down? She's like, yeah, 10% down. Talk to Jeff. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then we had you on that session, and it was like, huh. And I actually have that screenshot of Dr. Cheng's posting. You have made all my dreams come true. This year, she was able to get back $140,000 from her taxes from short-term rental. So after that video that she watched of our interview back in 2021, she went on basically a buying spree.
I love it. Yes, that's so awesome. And it's so this space has been really good to me. It's been good to my family, but if it stops there, it really doesn't have near the meaning as when you hear those stories about what you're doing is changing the trajectory of families and their ability to generate generational wealth. And so that has been just icing on the cake through, this journey.
It really has. It really has. And even though I'm, asking the questions, I mean, even our first property, I feel like that one has been like the baby in our hearts, because it's like, it kind of opened us up to even the possibility, right? Because previously we were buying just and I say just, it's not just, but yes, it is just. We were buying primarily, traditional inner city, rental property, duplexes with tenants in them. And we actually had an experience where a dog chased my daughter at one of the tenants'
Mm.
properties, like a tenant's dog chased my daughter. So she did not associate those properties with wealth or abundance or anything like that. And then we got the first short-term rental, and it's like, oh my goodness, you know what I'm saying? So it changed their perspective of this whole real estate thing, and which is why I talk very passionately about it, because it's one of those things where you can basically marry your wellness, your wealth building, your family time, your all of that into one nice package.
Well,
Okay.
and I'm glad you bring that story up about your was it your daughter?
Daughter, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because you just never know what is going to flip the switch or change their mindset or whether what they're going to be able to look at, and it ends up putting them in a position where they do things that if that wouldn't have happened and if they wouldn't have experienced that, it wouldn't have changed their mindset to really build that launching pad to go out and do bigger and better things than you and I are doing right now. So that you just love to hear this, watch the story unfold, and kind of think about what it could lead to for our children.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. Now one thing that's on many people's minds these days are the interest rates, right? I remember when we spoke at the beginning of 2022 when they were about to shift, and they were like, but everybody buy property now, whatever. And then the rates went up and they kept going up. And now we seem like we're at this nice little plateau with the possibility of maybe even dropping. So
Well,
what's your read on the market, on the interest rates and all of that, since you're right, since that is like your zone?
well, over the past month and really the past couple of weeks, we've seen some significant downward trajectories. So I'm talking about a 1% decrease. So that's been amazing. So we're back at levels that we were at
I'll say,
about this time last year through about March, April, and then we started seeing, inflation numbers weren't improving, and so mortgage interest rates were going up. But yeah, I am still telling people you should be in aggressive buy mode, or at least putting yourself in a position where you're pre-approved, you're aggressively analyzing deals and looking at properties, looking for that right opportunity. So you have your eyes open.
yes,
You don't have your head down. You've got your head up, you've got your eyes open, you're in that position to take action if the opportunity arises. Because if you were a buyer when rates were low, that was extremely frustrating, and it felt like you were not making a good decision because of the things that you were having to do to try to win deals.
yeah,
So as soon as rates get at a level, and I don't know what that magic number is. It may start with a 5, it may start with a 6, and then at the lower range of 6, where people go, okay, here we go. This
yeah,
is what I've been waiting for to get back in the market. It's just like that scenario of, what do you like in a property? Well, I bet thousands of other families like those same things. It's going to be the same scenario with thousands of other people and why they've been sitting on the bench.
yeah,
Because you can, and it's really this, that cliche rate of, or that cliche phrase of, we marry the house, we date the rate.
mhm,
But it's true. There would be a better rate opportunity later down the road. But to be in a position where you're not competing with hundreds of other people for the same property,
yes,
that those time periods are going to be unique, I think. So yeah, I'm encouraging people that if you're in that position, you have that idea to do it, you should do it sooner than later.
I actually agree. I actually agree. And it was the fact that I agree that made me pick up a couple at the end of last year when we were at the basically the height of, well, what seemed like the height when
Right.
everything literally froze. Like people weren't buying, properties were sitting on the market. Sellers were willing to basically hand you their property because there were no offers going out. And I feel that now I totally agree with you that with the hint of rates coming down, there may be more people in the market. So if you're watching this now, I would say if you're thinking about short-term rentals, listen to what Jeff said.
Yeah, yeah.
What he said. Listen to what he said. So, Jeff, are there any other ideas, thoughts, or tips you want to leave people with as we wrap this up?
Well, I mean, I hope we shared a lot of information that's new for people or breaks through misinformation that's been communicated, because that really has been eye-opening for a lot of people. Because really the role that I serve these days is I talk to people all day long about their initial questions and their dream, because a lot of this kind of basic information is on my website, strhomefinancing.com, and I created it that way so we could educate people with the basic information so that when I get on the phone with them, it's, hey, let's wrap up any initial questions that you have, and then just make sure that I point in the right direction for next steps, and you know what that looks like. But without fail, 4 or 5 times a week, people are telling me, Jeff, I didn't know that, or I was told this, or I wish I would have known that sooner. So now that you've been educated with the information, the correct information, use it. Don't just sit on it. Take action, or at least take the next step in kind of this journey of moving forward, to do something. So that's my encouragement is, education and information only goes so far until it leads you to a place where you use it to take action and do something. So maybe that is what's in store for 2024 for you is, okay, I know all this stuff. I've been hearing it. I've researched it to the nth degree. I'm going to do something this year. I'm here as a resource. I never get tired of talking to people about this, because one thing, I mean, you're a testament to that. I've come across so many amazing people in this space. It's very humbling. It really is. The people that I'm connected with, and I've been connected with, have been amazing. So I never get tired of having conversations with people. So if anyone has a hesitation about reaching out and making a connection and setting up a phone call, please don't. That's what I do. I really have no other responsibilities than to have conversations with people, because I have an amazing team that does the rest of it.
You absolutely do. I will attest to that. You have an amazing team.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
bring
So
people on here who don't have amazing teams, just for the record.
yeah, no, I appreciate that, because you're only as good as the team around you, and I have a great team, but they put me in a really unique and great position to make sure I'm making those connections with people and having those phone conversations on a daily basis.
Amazing, amazing. So you guys, you heard it, right? strhomefinancing.com. That is how to get a hold of Jeff. People reach out to me. How can I reach Jeff? I'm like, strhomefinancing.com. They're like, no, but I really want to reach him. I'm like, exactly. strhomefinancing.com. That is
No,
Jeff.
yeah, and it sounds very impersonal, but it is designed to quickly educate people on the basics and then schedule the phone call. And that way, you're not hearing me for 45 minutes regurgitate the same information. You literally can educate yourself in a matter of about 20 minutes with these short little 5-minute videos. And then let's jump on a phone call. So yeah, it's not that I'm afraid to give out my phone number. it just is not the best way to utilize everyone's time
Yeah.
because you can catch it on the website, and then yeah, let's connect on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing, amazing. And yeah, he mentioned his podcast, the STR Home Financing Podcast. So guys, make sure you check that out as well. Thank you so much, Jeff, for gracing our audience today. I mean, listen, guys, I always take notes whenever I chat with Jeff. So thank you again, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
I hope you got a ton of value from this interview. Now, if you got any value from it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to get your copy of the STR Blueprint to get your first or next short term rental, go to thestRbook.com.